All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. It's very, very exciting to see so many people in the audience tonight. And we did not have an executive session tonight, so there's no minutes to seal and there's no executive session votes to report on. So with that, I'm going to turn things over right away to Dr. Cummings so we can begin with our showcase.
Why, thank you. So this evening, I'm really excited to have as our showcase a number of our fall athletes who have engaged in some historical accomplishments. So I'd like to introduce Matt Marr, our athletic director, who will highlight some of the pieces that happened this fall.
You hear me now, Julio? Okay. It's always an honor and a privilege to showcase our student athletes here, and tonight is definitely no exception. We're going to be featuring 4 student athletes for you from 2 different teams and their individual accomplishments, but both of those teams had banner seasons. Our tennis team was 13-2, which is definitely the best record in recent history, and our cross-country team qualified for the state meet, which is a huge accomplishment being such a small program in a small school. We're really, really proud of them, and also would like to mention our coaches. Just outstanding job. They're great mentors and leaders, and we were thrilled to just be here in front of you tonight. So while we're proud of all our student athletes, we're bringing 4 athletes forward here tonight, starting with cross country and Coach Clem. Come on up, Coach. Yeah. I'll step over here.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it. It isn't very often that a cross-country team gets recognized, but we'll take it. I've been doing this for a while, a couple of years, and in my experience, I really have never had 2 athletes on the same team the same year as we had this year with Maddie O'Neill and Cole. It's not the usual. Maddie is just an exceptional young lady. All division, all class, all state, first team, all state. Top 7 kids in the state of first team. She's one of the top 7. Not only did she make all state, but she also won several races on her own. Very, very strong work ethic, very, very tough young lady, and just a wonderful kid to work with, as well as Cole is. Cole was also all division, all class, all state, first team, all state as well. So again, I'll say that it's not the usual for a team, 7 boys on our boys team, 5 girls on our girls team. And yet with those numbers, to have these quality runners up top really sets everybody up for a good race when it comes to the biggies. And they came through again. This is 2 years in a row now. They were both state qualifiers last year as a team and this year. And I think there were 48 cross-country teams in the state, and only 18 teams make it to states. So just to get there is an accomplishment. So I'm very proud of them. I'm very proud of what they did. I'm very proud of the fact that we had 2 team leaders who are not only great runners, but are also great teammates and great role models. And if it weren't for them, we really probably would not have been as good as we were. They really carried us along all year. So it's extraordinary, it's exceptional, and it certainly is something we all should be very proud of. You guys want to come up?
Let's bring up Cole Francis.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. I'm honored to be here. Yeah, like my coach said, it's not very common a small school like us gets to make it to the state meet, and it was a huge accomplishment for us this year, and I look forward to expanding on that next year and seeing what we can do as a team.
And Cole, what grade are you in?
I'm a junior.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And Maddie O'Neill.
Thank you so much. It's so such an honor to be here. I mean, it's just such an amazing team, and our team atmosphere is just so strong, and I think we just all really have a good connection with one another, and it's really great to make it to states and be able to go with your teammates and support each other, and I'm just super grateful for all my years at Narragansett. I love the atmosphere, and the athletic department is just so amazing.
And Maddie, what year are you, Maddie?
I'm a senior.
All right, do you have any idea what you want to do next year?
Yeah, college. Physical therapy, maybe.
All right, that's
Do you
wonderful.
think you'll be on the team in college?
Yeah, I want to run in college.
You will. I would imagine you'd be a good candidate for a scholarship in a lot of
Hoping.
colleges.
Thank you.
And we're going to do a recess after so we can do pictures and stuff like that. So don't run away, Cole and Maddie, because we're going to take a break after the whole showcase is done so we can do pictures. But a big congratulations to both of you. That's very, very...
And now we'd like to bring up Coach Alan Friedman of the tennis team.
Great to be here, especially representing the Mariners for 2023. Our team this year in regular season was 12-1. And part of that reason is our doubles team, our first seed doubles. When you're putting together a doubles team, there's a lot of factors. It's the synergy between two people, it's how they get along, their game skills, and I had no idea that our two first doubles, Lara Gooding and AMUJAM Karuna Lohman, I call her Karuna because it would take half the practice time to pronounce her first name. So both of them, a freshman and a sophomore. I had no idea that they would really connect. They're very different in terms of personality and court style, but for some reason they came together and they had a phenomenal season and helped us with that 12-1 record. They were, as the first seed doubles, undefeated. They were first team all division. They were the top doubles team in the second division. They had to beat Narragansett's second seed doubles team for that title. Very unique. I've been coaching this for 4 years, and when you have two teams from the same school competing, it started out, I think they forgot that they thought that they were just teammates, and then they realized they were competing, and it became very competitive. As a coach, it's great to have two teams from the same school. I can't lose. Go Narragansett. But they were also, as well as first team all division, as well as the top team in the second division, they qualified to play in the all-state tournament. This includes Division 1, 2, and 3. In the all-state doubles, in the first round, they competed against a Division 1 school, a top Division 1 school, and very competitive. They stayed focused. They reflected what they did all season. They didn't let the title of all-state get in their face and interfere with how they play. They stayed very disciplined. Keeping in mind, it's a freshman and, of course, a much older sophomore. And they won. They won what they call a qualifying round. And now they go into the quarterfinals. And they go against another Division I school. And they really clicked. They played well together. It's at some point in the season you start to peak. And they peaked together at the right time, and they won another match in the quarterfinal. And now they're in the semifinal against one of the second best team in Division I, North Kingston. By the way, North Kingston finished second in their division, only losing to the top team, undefeated LaSalle. I'm sure you hear that word year after year. In 4 years, I hear LaSalle, LaSalle, LaSalle. But this year, I hear LaSalle, Narragansett, Narragansett, LaSalle. In any case, they competed in the semifinal, and I was listening around, whispering, hearing coaches saying, the final should be North Kingston and LaSalle. Obviously, two top teams. But our team just, I guess they didn't get the message. They won. They won in the semifinals against a very good North Kingston team. And so I find out from our AD that in the finals, this is the first time historically, as part of the archive, the first time that a Division II doubles team played in the finals. And they played a very strong LaSalle Academy program. They didn't win, but I will tell you, everything I've heard and everything, they just were very, very competitive. And so we're really proud of this team, as we are for the whole team. I could spend more time than the AD would let me talking about our team this year. But I do have to talk about this first doubles team. It's a legacy year. More than likely, they will not probably play together again next year, because in tennis, everything changes every year with players graduating and players moving up, etc. But this has been a phenomenal year for everyone involved, parents, the AD's office, the school, the players, and of course the coach. So I'm really, really, really proud of this first seed doubles undefeated team. Thank you.
So first up, let's bring up Laura Gooding.
So this year's team has just been really strong, and it's been so amazing that me and Karuna were able to make it that far as coming from the bottom as a D2 team to the All-State Finals, and it's just a really great accomplishment, and I'm really glad that me and Karuna were able to do that together, because yeah, not only was it an accomplishment, we grew our friendship along the way, so that was great.
And now please welcome Karuna, who is also a standout member of our cross-country team.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. I just want to say, it was really, really cool and fun, playing this year, and I think our team did a really good job, and our coach really helps foster an environment that makes us all feel like a team and everything, and we all work well together. And then I also wanted to say that playing with Laura was so fun, and we work really well together. When one of us would have a bad day or not play that well, the other would always understand. We were always there for each other. And there were some other doubles teams where they may not have been as understanding, but I think we were always really good and encouraging, and I think that really helped us. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you again. Appreciate you having us, and hopefully we'll see you over winter.
Yes, thank you. So a big congratulations to all the kids for your accomplishments, and also for coming tonight. That means a lot to us that you took time out of your evening to come here tonight. Alex, did you have another comment before we
Yeah, I just
take a
wanted
break for
to thank
pictures?
you all for coming to share in this very exciting showcase. It brought me back to my competitive days as an athlete in Narragansett. You know, I actually was a cross-country runner and a tennis player as well, and I understand that, you know, you look up to your captains, your coaches. In tennis especially, there's this chemistry and doubles that goes a long way, and you're really, you not only are you competing against the other team, but you're also working with your doubles partner, competing against them in some ways to say, hey, I got the better serve today. But, you know, thank you all for sharing your experience. We're very grateful to have such incredible coaches leading us in Narragansett and to have such incredible athletes leading us on our Narragansett teams. I understand that there's a lot of heart, drive, passion, dedication that goes into the amount of work to be an athlete. And it's clear to me that we've got some really incredible athletes here in Narragansett. So again, thank you all for coming to share in this experience.
And we're going to take a very short recess. Lauren, did you want to take pictures? Do you want the cross-country athletes first? So we're going to take a break in the meeting, but if the cross-country athletes don't mind, a picture with Lauren, and then we'll swap and do tennis. But we're going to take a brief recess. All right, thank you again, everyone, for coming tonight. We really appreciate that. All right, so we're going to resume our meeting. And it's now time for open forum. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Okay. Oh, come on up and please say your name.
Hi, my name is Tammy DeSano. I've met Dr. Cummings and another member of the school committee before, but I'm the mother of a fourth grade student, and we moved here about a year ago. And when we moved here, I was a little surprised to hear that the fifth grade was in the middle school. And so I was here at the last school committee meeting when another parent, Lauren, had presented the proposal to have the fifth grade moved back to the elementary school. And as I understand, she had a meeting with the superintendent, and they spoke a little bit about the opportunity. And I believe that there's going to be a meeting maybe in December, but for the fourth grade parents who are looking to possibly consider this for next year, I wanted to come tonight because I guess the next meeting is going to be the budget. And so what our request is that there would be a meeting prior to that budget meeting to discuss the feasibility, the pros and the cons, and the budgetary considerations of having the fifth grade move to the, back to the elementary school for next year. There are a couple of considerations, obviously, so there would need to be a meeting to talk about it. And when I've presented this to some parents, there have been a number that were really interested, and then there were others that had concerns. And so even having maybe a questionnaire go out to parents so that we get everyone's feedback. It's not just the parents who kind of come to the meeting and talk about this. I think it's in fairness, there might be some concerns either way, and there might be some considerations that all of you have that we haven't thought about. And so I'm sure that there's a lot of moving pieces. COVID taught us that we can pivot if there's enough support. So that was my thinking. And the reason is, it's not just as like a parent, but also I happen to be a therapist and a previous school, elementary school social worker, and an administrator for preschools and middle school and a high school. So I have some background. Also, my clients who are in middle school and high school talk about a number of the concerns of middle school. And so I am a little bit concerned about my 10-year-old being in the middle school. A number of parents couldn't come. I have 2 letters to read from other parents. May I do that, or how does it work?
Well, you've got about 40 seconds left, but if you want, you can
Speed reading.
summarize, but you can also leave anything
Okay.
with with our admin specialist, or you can email it to us or Pete, but you got about 30 seconds left.
So I can do that quickly. So Emmy Mahoney, she has 2 children, Julia in 4th grade and Jack Blaker in 2nd grade, to whom it may concern. She's the school committee. When I heard of the petition to move the 5th grade students back to the elementary school, I was so happy to hear others support this proposition. In today's day and age, I think it's especially important that we try to keep our children young at heart and mind as long as we can. I attended NES and NHS, class of 1994, and when I was in school, we stayed in the elementary school until 6th grade. I have fond memories of being at the elementary school through 6th grade, and I was so glad it was that way. I really think that that in this day and age, our children are exposed to so much social media and peer pressure to make them grow up faster than they should be. Any way that we can help them be youthful, engage in age-appropriate activities and conversations, we should do that. I'm very much in favor of the 5th grade, and frankly, the 6th grade be moved back to NES. There was another parent, Jeannie Adams. As a parent of a 4th grader, I'm very interested in the proposal for keeping 5th graders in the elementary school. I did sign the petition sent out earlier this fall, but was disappointed that it wasn't formally presented to the school board this year. According to the research presented in the petition, there's much evidence in that keeping 5th grade in the elementary school has positive outcomes for the students. Thank you for the consideration and safety and best practices of Narragansett 5th graders, Jeannie Adams.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak for open forum? Come on up and state your name.
Jerry Bonner. Bear with me as I'm not a great speaker, but just want to start off by saying thank you. Been part of the Narragansett school town community for a very long time, and couldn't be happier with our school system. I think you hired a great principal who's been a stand-up person who's always been there for the last 2 months that I've seen him. So just want to start with that and thank you for your leadership. I came here today just to advocate and ask for additional funds for our athletic department, specifically towards our hockey team. We don't supply, we supply some funds to our hockey practices, and I understand there's a cost to hockey. I understand quite well. And we have to be fair and equitable to all, not only both boys and girls, but also to other sports. But just wanted to put out there that other towns are putting up those funds. Cumberland, Lincoln, North Kingston, East Greenwich, Barrington, all these towns are paying for at least 2 sheets of ice every week for both their boys and the girls programs. South Kingston, Rogers, they are not. They're in the same boat as us, where we have to fundraise all of our money to pay for our ice hockey practice time. It's quite a bit of money that we have to ask our local community to put forth towards our program and for our kids. Again, I understand, you know, it can be quite costly and expensive, but I just ask, you know, for consideration to help Matt Mahar, who I think has done a great job, and I think, you know, is a really good asset to the Narragansett school system. I would just like to be able to support him a little bit more in the future years with our hockey program so that we might be able to get additional funding towards that. But once again, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure, and I continue to look forward to having my kids raised and grown here in Narragansett. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay. All right, so we are moving on with our meeting. It is time for oral reports. Does anyone from the school committee have a report to give? All right, Alex, you want to go first, then Diane? Okay.
Oh, well, Diane, you can go first if you'd like.
Go ahead.
Okay, I do, you know, you can go first next time. So the Health and Wellness Committee met earlier this month. I'm like blanking on the day, but working on decreasing unpaid meal debt and encouraging families who qualify for free or reduced lunch to apply. We're also looking to continuing to provide families with information in the newsletter, such as quick healthy meals, healthy snacks, recommendations on how to spend Mariner Mondays with friends and family, etc. After-school enrichment at the elementary school is underway. 11 enthusiastic children are participating in learning about basic culinary skills. Discussions have also occurred about resuming cooking club for grades 5 through 8 to begin in December or January for 5 to 6 weeks, inviting 10 middle school students. Future discussions will be had regarding at the high school in the spring. Maddie Lucy also shared about Wellness Wednesdays at the high school. On Wednesdays, wellness activities will be offered for students to sign up during their task blocks. We hope to offer these activities every other Wednesday for students and hope to offer 2 to 3 activities to choose from. Ideas include walking, yoga, cooking, baking, painting, calligraphy, kickboxing, and more. Many staff members have volunteered to help out in the past and have made this a huge success. The high school peer-to-peer group will form a subcommittee where students will help plan and organize these Wellness Wednesday activities. The hope is to offer more support for students to engage in healthy activities, to decrease stress, improve their moods, and boost positive school culture and connection for the whole school community. Karen Festa, our social emotional learning coordinator, also shared a presentation on Ruler. Ruler is an approach to social and emotional learning that teaches the skills of emotional intelligence and includes everyone in the school community. Research shows Ruler reduces problem behavior, promotes positive relationships, and improves academic achievement. She shared about how these will be integrated at the middle and high school level. I'm sure Diane will provide an update about the annual breakfast, so I'll skip over that. And then the diversity and equity team will meet on November 29th via Zoom at 3:45 p.m. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alex. Diane?
On October 26th, I attended the Rhode Island Healthy Schools Coalition annual breakfast at the Crown Plaza. The main speaker this year was an individual from Vermont who works with the Shelburne Farm Schools Initiative. Vermont is one of 8 states that has adopted the universal free lunch. And all students, regardless of family income, receive a free lunch. And it's called the Universal School Lunch Program.
Great, thank you, Diane. Any other school committee members have a report? Justin?
Yeah, so I just want to report that me and Jennifer attended the tech subcommittee last week, went over some new material for potential upgrades to the school infrastructure and potentially dealing with more curriculum, potentially around AI and other aspects for including school security. And that's basically it.
Great, thank you. All right, we are on to the student report. Maya?
Okay, with me. This one's a little bit longer. But so recently, just what I've been like focusing on and asking around to like my fellow seniors is like their perspective on not the senior project and the senior paper, but that the time like of the year, so doing it now. So as like we know, and obviously the fall can be one of the busiest times for like all students in the school. It's the start of the year, fall sports, activities, whatever. But for seniors, it's even more busier because of college applications. So and also who I've talked to, just like my friends and asking people in my classes, is majority of them are actually applying like either early decision or early action, which is early decision means you are like legally binded to go there. Early action means you just want to hear back earlier. So this means that on top of our regular like schoolwork, we're also doing college apps like now. I have one due today. So I've just been asking, do you wish that we started the senior paper later, like either beginning of semester 2 or like middle of quarter 2, because we just started our second quarter this week. So I was just asking like what they think and do they wish that they started it later? And I've heard 2 different opinions, one being no, like let's just get it over with. And the other being, yes, it's too much out of school work, because I can say for myself and people I've talked to, majority of my paper has been written at home. I don't have a lot of in-class time to talk to my teacher, as our classes are shorter and she has 20 other students to talk to. So most of it is done at my house. So personally, I wish that we did it later, just because I'm gonna be real, I'm focusing more on my college applications than my paper. So my paper is probably not to my best ability, when I know I'm a good writer, and if I had more time and more time with my teacher, it would have been better. And I mean, our paper is due Tuesday, so it's gonna be over with and we're gonna have time. But I mean, applications started October 15th with some of the first ones. So on top of writing a paper it's a lot for a senior, especially, who has a lot of other things going on too. So I plan to ask more people, because I'm hearing like 2 completely different sides, and I could say like it's pretty split in half what people think. So I do plan on like, I don't know how I'm gonna do it yet, but I plan on either like recording like people on Tuesday, like seeing like, what do you think? Or getting like a little petition to sign. But so that'll be next meeting.
All right, great, thank you. All right, we're on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Cummings?
Great, thank you. First of all, Maya, thank you. And I know that Mr. Fiore has that on his radar. And so kind of looking at all the responsibilities that students have across the 4 years and making sure that we're not overburdening in some areas and kind of making sure we're distributing things in the right way. So I think that's a very timely discussion, so I appreciate you raising it. I also just want to say thank you for, again, commenting on the 5th grade. We are, certainly meeting in December, and, as you said, all of the ideas that you brought forward are going to be a part of that discussion, so I appreciate you saying that. And again, we're trying to nail down the final date that the most people can make it, but it will be kind of second week of December or so. It will be our initial discussion. A few things also going on. I had the pleasure of being in Miss Allen's 4th grade class for the day today, so that was really exciting. I've been starting to shadow students for the day, as we go through. I am happy to report that 4th grade remains challenging, time and money. Again, I wish I had been taught it in the same way that our 4th graders are getting taught it right now. And sharks and minnows is really fun at recess. In other news, there is a lot going on. So, it is the end of the first quarter. And so we are working with students to make sure at the high school level that they remain on track. And for those who are doing early decision, and that seems to be happening more and more, the guidance counselors are hard at work kind of supporting them getting their applications out. The second thing that was mentioned in the reports today is something that we're really thinking deeply about, which is AI, and really kind of working with Vanessa Miller, who is our tech coach, has been really doing a deep dive. I think probably as we learn more about it, we will need to do a policy about AI coming forward. I'm not sure we're quite ready to do that yet. We do have some guidelines that we are working with at the school level, but they're not quite at the policy level yet. And so I think part of the work of that tech committee is going to help advise on a policy, and we'll be getting the policy committee and the tech committees kind of together to start to think about what does that look like long term. It's really tough. It changes every day. And so for us to have good policy and good rules of the road there, we're fortunate to have someone like Vanessa who's doing a deep dive and becoming knowledgeable about it, and Julio is certainly another great advisor about that. So then more to come on that, but just know it's on our radar. And then finally, our big presentation tonight is Gail has been working hard to disaggregate our numbers and really look at the outcomes of the state results and what they mean for us long term. I will say that we have, and you've heard me say this before, there are many areas to be really happy with, and there are lots of areas where it indicates that we have to put some more energy into. And some of what we do is look at root cause for those and start to think about why are things the way that they are. So Gail's going to go over those now.
Gail, just a quick question. Would you like us to hold our questions to the end, or as they come up, ask our questions throughout?
I think as they come up would be best while I'm on the slide, if that's possible.
Yes, sounds good. Okay, thanks.
There's actually like a natural break you'll see with the assessments as I report out. So I know you have the slides. I know you've had them for a couple days to kind of look at. So I'm not going to read the slides to you, but I will go through some highlights and answer your questions, and for the viewing audience, for them to kind of get an overview of our results. So the why. Why do we do the state testing? Well, we are required to through the Department of Education, but it does help us to track a child's progress over time, and we have tools that we can see how a student has done on these assessments from 3rd grade all the way till 8th grade if it's the RICAS, and then continuing on to SATs. So we can really see the trends. The results give us the ability to compare your child's school to schools across the state. And here's the most important reason. We use these results to analyze and inform decisions to support teaching and learning. We look at these results from many different lenses. We look, obviously, with the current students that we have. We look by cohort to see was there growth from one year to the next by cohort, meaning the same group of students. We do a deep dive into the standards and when they're taught, how often they're taught before they take the assessment, and I'll tell you about a project the curriculum team's been working on with that specifically. We also look at data such as absenteeism of both students and staff, and how that may affect our data and what we might need to do moving forward. And also looking at the opt-outs and how that affects our scores as well. And I know Dr. Cummins mentioned both of those factors in the previous school committee meeting, which is just what this slide is about, how the chronic absenteeism definitely affects our results. And one piece of data that I just pulled out, students who took the SATs who did not meet standards in either ELA or math, close to 30% of them were chronically absent 1 or more years during their high school experience. So if you're not there to have the material presented to you, chances are you're not going to know the material. So absenteeism definitely is one of the factors, not only for our district, but it's a statewide issue. Diane, did you have a question?
I did on the opt-out. Is there a list of acceptable reasons that a parent can opt out, or can
So
any
I'm not
reason
talking
be-
about medically excused opt-outs. A medical opt-out is different. That's where a doctor has to sign off that this child is not mentally or physically able to take the test. We do not get zeros from medical opt-outs. These are parent opt-outs for whatever their personal reason is that they don't want their student to take the test. When a parent opts out, they either call or email or bring a letter to the principal, and we don't just accept it. We call back and try to tell them the importance of taking the test, not only for the child, but for the district. Sometimes we can convince them, sometimes we can't. But we do receive a 0 for every opt-out, not medical exemption, opt-out. And the piece of data I just put in this slide is in the middle school, for example, we had 6 students opt out for math and 10 for ELA. That's 16 zeros that were folded into our scores.
Gail, I had a question. You know, being a teacher, I understand the correlation between absenteeism. There's a lot of research out right now on absenteeism. There's research before COVID, there's research during COVID, and there's research after COVID. And what I've learned from the many, many hours I've taken in PD for mental health first aid is that the first sign that a student needs mental health help is absenteeism. So I was just curious as to if this is a recurring theme, what types of things have been in place to services that we have, psychologists, we just hired another psychologist this year, to keep on top of that so we don't see the drastic absenteeism.
So every principal or assistant principal, whoever is in charge of that in the building, they, on a monthly basis, along with Rebecca Angel, our social worker, look at those students who are, what they consider chronically absent is 10% of that time period. And after so many times that they're 10%, a phone call is made home, you know, a letter goes home, they might be brought to truancy court. So the parents are aware. The school does contact them to say, we're concerned about your child's absences.
So we do quite a bit. At the school level, there are the interventions by the school psychologist, school social worker, by the principal. You know, not just letters home, but calls home, conferences with parents. At the district level, we do have an early warning committee that meets, you know, a couple of times per quarter. Attendance is one of the factors we look at. We look at disciplinary data. We look at academic progress. And we design interventions for those students based on those early warning systems. And so that can range from everything from home visits to extra study sessions, to tutoring, to home intervention, to outside of school social services. So we do have quite a bit that goes on there. Couldn't agree more that it's certainly a sign of you know, either mental health issues or you know, family issues that may be going on. And you know, we do try to resolve that at the source when we can. You know, unfortunately, as you say, it's a symptom, not a problem in itself. And some of those problems are deep-seated and complex, right? And so we do give whatever assistance that we can. And part of it is also recognizing and kind of projecting out to the community, which I think our principals do a great job with, about the importance of being in school, right? And so for many students, school could be the best part of their day, right? And so we want to make sure that we're getting them there. We provide specialized transportation if a family is in need, you know, so we really do go the extra mile. We have the ability to do that as a smaller district. You know, unfortunately, we are in a place where there is a mental health crisis for lots of our teens and for lots of our families. And so the supports from the school system, unfortunately, sometimes aren't enough, right? We need more kind of community-based supports or statewide supports. And so, you know, we'll continue to advocate for those. I know the Principals Association, Superintendents Association are all advocating for those supports at the legislative level. And so we're hoping some of those can be put in place.
Okay, thank you. This slide just shows you the assessments that we're going to be talking about this evening. We have the RICAS and ELA and in math, and that goes for grades 3 through 8. And then we have the science assessments that are given in grades 5, 8, and 11, and then we'll talk a little bit about the SATs for the high school. So the first one is science assessments, and we've been given these for a few years. Some nutshell notes about how we've done. Every year when we debrief with the teachers about how we've done, we also make a plan about what we're going to do differently moving forward. So last year, our grade 5 and 8 teachers, we met and we decided that we were going to do two things to see if they would improve our scores. And of course, not just the scores, but improve the students' learning about the standards that they need for their grade level. So one thing that we did was we implemented the interim assessments that are available but not required for us to do through RIDE. And what these interim assessments do is they give students the opportunity to have science-based questions on the unit that they're currently working on that reflect how a question would be worded or given in the actual assessment. So it's like embedded test practice, but it's authentic because it's right with the unit that they're teaching. So we implemented those, and then through our partnership with GEMSNet, we had the GEMSNet coaches come to us, and I just want to say, GEMSNet said we used their coaches more than any other district in the state last year. They came and really met with the teachers about, okay, how did the kids do on these interim assessments? What does this mean? Let's make sure our pacing is where it needs to be. And I'm happy to report that our scores went up. 5th grade just went up a few points, but 8th grade went up significantly, almost 10 points actually. So there's an example of kind of like an intervention that we did based on our scores to improve them for the following year. We did the same in grade 11 last year as our way to try to increase the scores, but we didn't start them as early as we did in the middle school, so the kids didn't have as much time to participate in the interim assessments. So we're hoping this year, because we started earlier, they'll have that time and we'll see some of the same results that we had at the middle school. In addition, we're going to be starting to look at the high-quality curriculum materials that are out there for science. As you know, we've adopted them already for ELA and math. Science is the next one. Right now, we're supposed to have them in place by 2025, but the Department of Ed is going to the legislature to see if they can extend that deadline, because I'll be honest with you, there aren't enough high-quality curriculum vetted materials out there for us to even choose from. There's one or two. So I know we've all advocated to RIDE to try to get an extension, and I know they're working on that, and they're waiting for the legislature. But to be proactive with that, we, in April, are meeting with the middle and the high school science teachers to have a presentation from Open SciEd, which is one of the vendors that is high-quality curriculum material vetted, for two purposes. One, to kind of get it started, but two, for our teachers to see, oh, is the materials, maybe the materials is part of it. Do we need to start looking at different materials in addition to the interim assessments, in addition to making sure the pacing is on track and so on. So we are deeply thinking about, when we look at these scores, what's our next step? I know someone's going to ask me how we do compared to different districts. So I made this little chart for you, and you can kind of see we're pretty much in the pack with the rest of our neighbors, except grade 11. So grade 11 is where we really need to do more of a deep dive in with practice for the students. I know that the teachers do question sometimes how seriously the students take the test. So we were working on a couple of incentives to maybe incentivize them to take the test seriously. So we're hoping that maybe that will help as well in the future.
I just had a quick question. The interventionists that you said we were offering last year, is that continuing
Oh,
as
yes,
well?
yes, through GEMSNet, yeah.
Okay.
They don't, GEMSNet doesn't work with our high school, but the person who is at RIDE, who is in charge of science for the state, Aaron Escher, he has been awesome. I mean, he has met with us on Zoom, and he's always there to answer any questions for the high school folks if they need that kind of coaching. He's there for us, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So that's science. So now the RICAS in ELA and math. So for grade 3, I do want 3 and 4 at the elementary school. I do want to give a shout out. They did very well. In fact, they are in the top 10 of districts of how they performed on ELA and math. So I do want to give a nice shout out to grade 3 and 4 at NES. Grade 3 had 71.7% proficient and above, and grade 4 had 67.7, but I do want to make sure you realize it was an increase, a significant increase from 51.5 to 67.7. So that's definitely a celebration for our elementary students. For our middle school friends, we had some decreases in 5 and 6. We now have the high-quality curriculum materials implemented in 5, 6, well, now we have it K-12, but this is the first year for 5, 6, 7. So we're hoping the new materials are going to help us bump those scores up. There's coaching happening with the new materials. And then something else, we talked about attendance, staff attendance in grade 5, 6 last year. We did have staff members who were out for extended periods of time, and we had subs in there. So sometimes when there's a sub, it's not the same as having the regular classroom teacher. They don't have all the training and everything. So lots of factors into these scores. Okay. For 7 and 8, we have some increases. So this is exciting because last year was the first year we implemented the new curriculum in grade 8. Now this year will be the first in grade 7. And our scores increased in our grade 8 from 39% to 50.7 in 1 year. So I think that's a result of the new materials and the coaching. We're hoping to see the same increase in grade 7. We had a slight increase last year, but this will be their first year with the new high-quality curriculum materials.
I'm sorry, I totally,
That's okay.
just totally blank for a second. So when I was looking at my own child's scores,
Yep.
and comparing them to districts and such, they actually break down questions in what areas that they didn't get right. Actually, they tell you how many answers and questions and what areas they're in. One thing that struck me was that vocabulary. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, they're learning the vocabulary, whatever they're reading. So do you think we're just seeing maybe, this standard test, the RICAS specifically, was maybe really not geared towards that curriculum we had prior, even though it was more, and I talk as a parent because there was so much social and emotional in that I think our kids benefited so much in COVID with that. And now do you think that this curriculum is just more highly specialized with, now my kids have spelling words and vocabulary words. So did you find, I guess here's my question, did you find the one area that was really, really lacking in ELA? Was it comprehension? Was it vocabulary? Was it writing? What was it?
Wow, so this is I could talk all day about this question. So, but you brought up some good points. So I'm going to try to answer it, but it's probably not going to answer exactly what you're looking for, but I'll give it a shot. So when we get these results, we are able to see the questions, how our kids did on a question, match it to the standard, and then look at that standard and say, when do we teach it? How much do we teach it, and how deeply do we teach it? and make curriculum decisions based on that. Dr. Cummings has given us a great curriculum project that my team and I has been working on. It's been very time consuming, but it really has been worthwhile, where we have taken the last 5 years of released and unreleased items for ELA and math, and I've counted up how many times they were assessed in the last 5 years. And that got on a list. And anything that was assessed 5 or more times stayed on that list. Then the coaches and I looked at our curriculum materials and mapped for this standard that was taught 5 or more times, how many lessons do they get before RICAS? And if it was 5 or less lessons, it stays on that list, because that shows us they are being taught it, that's great, but they need a little bit more. So we're going to be sharing that with teachers, which is great information, because then we can say to the teachers, obviously everything we bought is aligned to the standards. But see these, it's coming out to be like 6 to 8 standards. It's not a whole lot. See these 6 to 8 standards? They're assessed a lot. They're not taught a lot before RICAS. So when you do teach them, you need to teach them, deeply. And if you can sneak them in other times, you need to do that, because that's the only way we're going to ensure that they're getting everything they need. I know one area that, we do need to really think about is writing. And part of it is, for whatever reason, the kids, they get the test and it has this, big box to write in, and they only write in the top part of the box. So, it's quality, obviously, but in some cases it's quantity as well. So, getting them to understand that to thoughtfully respond to a prompt, it's probably going to be more than a sentence, So yes, it's a lot of deep thinking, and it's all interesting work. I mean, you can look at data in so many different ways, but I think the way we're looking at it, and what my team does, my curriculum team, they're just awesome. I want to shout out to the coaches. We package that. So we're doing all that background work, and then we're even putting in, how have we done on these standards in the last 5 years? Because there's some standards that we hardly ever taught and they're doing really well on, and then there's others. So we're going to package that up for the teachers. So they're not doing all that background. They're getting the package, and then they can go teach it. And that's where it really happens.
And what Gail and the principals do, and I think that's a really thoughtful question, Jen, is that they sit with each teacher and they look at the cohort that they had last year, and then they look at the cohort in front of them, right? And they say, okay, so where were the holes in our curriculum, or where did the last year's cohort not perform? Then where did the kids in front of us, right, have some holes where we have to fill in? The challenge, and Gail and her team are doing a great job, is that when we are implementing the high-quality curricula that the state is requiring, which we really agree with, those are national curricula. They're not necessarily designed for Rhode Island or for the RICAS. And so, these are still new to us, but some of this is unpacking those and ensuring that, the materials are not the curriculum, right? They're the materials. And so we're developing units and developing lessons that are using those, but also keeping as much as possible, some of the elements of the Teachers College reading and writing that we know was really successful with kids that got them to love reading and love writing. And so, we're in the early stages of doing that because it's brand new, but our teachers are doing a wonderful job with that. And, part of the work that Gail and her team does is to assist the principals and assist the teachers in unpacking the data to say, listen, we need to, I was in a lesson about, nouns and adverbs today, right? And so, nouns and adjectives today. And that was, kind of language that we didn't use before necessarily in 4th grade. There was kind of this assumption that, kids would know it from going over it once or twice, right? And so it helped us to identify, okay, here are some of the structures of language that we have to go, a little bit deeper on. What we want to be careful of is not losing the love of reading piece of it, right? That goes along with that.
Yeah, and we're in the very early stages of implementing CKLA, which is what we're using at the elementary school. But as we did with the English and the math curriculums that we've adopted or curriculum materials that we've adopted in the past, is exactly what Dr. Cummings said. It's the materials are not the curriculum. So after we go through it for a year, we convene at Curriculum Academy, where teachers come in during the summer with the coaches and myself, and we talk about what worked, what didn't work, what's missing, and so on. And we revise based on that. In fact, we're doing some revision right now because we're looking at the new materials and we're saying, oh, the writing isn't as rich as we'd like it to be as it was, so we're not waiting for the summer. We're looking right now to see how we can bump up the writing. So it's just a process that we are continually looking at, and the coaches are in there constantly with the teachers, planning and making sure they have what they need to be successful. So moving along with the RICAS math, grade 3 and grade 4, once again, did exceptionally compared to other schools in the state. Grade 3 had 68.3% proficient or above, and grade 4 had 79.7%. So our grade 3 and 4 students, once again, shout out to NES on their scores. In grade 5 and 6, our scores were about the same in grade 5, a little lower in grade 6. We are continuing with coaching. We have some new teachers who have joined us as well. And then last year, Dr. Cummings started a discussion group called Building Thinking Classrooms. So I offer that as a group where I invite the teachers to join Dr. Cummings. They get a copy of the book, they read the book, and then he's right there facilitating the book discussion with them and talking about how to implement that into their mathematics classrooms. We had a great group of teachers last year. It was so well, received and talked about that we're offering another cohort this year, and we have quite a few. It's going to be this cohort is more elementary and high school teachers, to be honest with you, and last year was more middle and high school teachers. So that's exciting taking place. If you're not familiar with the text, I'm happy to show you, but it's great to see teachers volunteering to be part of that because they're hearing from their colleagues that it's working in their classrooms.
So it is exciting. We're trying to change the paradigm of mathematics instruction, and think about it differently. I want to Linda McQuaid, who is our math department leader and coach, has been doing a great job with that. But it really is thinking about mathematics differently, looking at it from the angle of not just memorizing algorithms, but really, problem solving. And we've had a lot of buy-in into it. And, I will say, when I am talking to students in the middle school in particular right now around what are you working on when they're doing a mathematics problem, the level of discourse that I'm receiving from students about unpacking the math problems that they're looking at and thinking through why they're doing it is amazing. So I'm really encouraged. The scores are, I think, always going to take a little while to catch up with the level of knowledge that is being shared. I'm really encouraged by our math scores from last year because it's starting to trend in the right direction.
Yeah, and grade 8 is a perfect example of that. Their scores went up from 43.8 to 55.3 in 1 year. So I think it's working. I think the amount of rigor they also put into 8th grade mathematics last year really pushed the kids. Sometimes it was out of their comfort zone. Sometimes it was out of parents' comfort zone because the kids came home, they're like, this is hard. But you know what? They did it. That productive struggle really pushed them to be great thinkers and learners, and at the end, they were really proud of themselves. Comparing with neighboring districts, so, we're pretty much in the pack there with SKNK and Charahoe, and these are district scores for all of our schools. All right, so then we go to the SAT. So in 22-23, our ELA scores were 60.9 at or above the standards, which is above the state, which was at 49%. Our math scores were at 40%. The state was at 25.3%. We definitely have some work to do with our SAT scores. We do have the high-quality curriculum in place for math and ELA. We do have coaches in place. Still working on our pacing to make sure they're getting through the units that they need to get through. It's interesting that Maya mentioned about the paper and the senior project and all that. We're always wondering, how much time do we give in class and outside of class, because they have to get through the curriculum standards as well, and it's a dance. We do have IXL in place, which the students take 3 times a year, except for seniors in their springtime semester, which is aligned to the SAT for practice. So we have things in place. We're really hoping the new schedule is going to help with instruction as well, because they're meeting more often, shorter amount of time, but more often, so they have that consistency. So we're hoping we're going to see some benefits of the new schedule there as well. And the following slides, I know you have them, but it just gives you like some cohort information and how we did as compared to other towns. And then
Right.
here's
And
our neighborhood
I will just
slide.
add, Gail,
Yep.
for the SAT, so this was the largest class we've ever had take the SAT. So, you'll note in the numbers, there's about, 40 to 50 more kids taking the SAT this time. And we really did feel the effect from this grade of kids that were chronically absent or feeling the requirement of having to take it. So we had a very high participation rate. There were a number of students who were not putting forth not lots, but there were several students who, either just kind of signed their name and, did it because they had to. And again, sometimes that coincided with students who were having absentee issues. And so, for us, it's really about also raising awareness about the importance of this exam for students, because again, we want students to have choices when they graduate. This is one of the ways that students can have choices, right, is to have a reasonable SAT score. It opens doors to college applications that might not otherwise be available. And so again, just making sure that we are stressing the importance of this for students, not for the sake of the school scores, but for their own sake to have opportunities beyond high school, I think is really important as we go forward. And I know Mr. Fiore is really on top of that, and so that's going to be a priority going forward.
So I know that was a whirlwind tour of the scores. So in closing, I just wanted to reiterate, our next steps. So the parents have all received their RICAS scores and their science scores. The SAT scores are available to them in their portal already. The coaches and I are working on getting all that data ready for the principals and the teachers. The principals are having grade level meetings to dig down to the data. They're having personal meetings with teachers about their own group of students. And then the coaches will be sharing the project that I just told you about for future planning. And then we always review our results when we revise our strategic plan as well, because that's a big part of the plan is teaching and learning and improving student learning and teacher effectiveness. Any questions?
Any questions for Gail?
I just have a comment. On the grade 4 ELA increase of 16% to 67.7% proficiency, and also grade 4 math increase of 31% to 79.7% proficiency, which was the highest score of any of the scores for the 79.7. So I just wanted to say that whatever pedagogy is being used in grade 4 perhaps could be replicated.
Yeah, we did adopt new math last year, which is Bridges for pre-K already used it, but pre-K through 4. And it's so interesting because I was just waiting for that implementation dip, and it didn't happen, thank goodness. So because sometimes that happens when you have a new curriculum materials. I think a lot of that is not only the materials, but the coaches met with the teachers in math weekly to help them plan, and the teachers embraced it, and the teachers choose. They're on teams that choose the curriculum as well. So it's not like Pete and I sit in a room and pick the curriculum. Curriculum materials, we have a committee that goes through so many iterations before that check is written to buy those materials. But thank you for that shout out, Diane.
Oh, you're welcome. And I just had one other, I know the superintendent has you on one big project, but perhaps another big project, if time permits, would be interesting because it's such a granular level. Can you back out those 16 zeros and refigure what scores would be if they weren't included?
I'll have to look at
'Cause
that, probably.
Everything would rise, I would imagine.
I'll look into
So
that.
I know you're looking for more projects to
Yes,
do.
I am, yes.
We'll send that score to RIDE and just let them know.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any other questions for Gail?
It was just a comment. I think we're seeing, obviously, the increase in scores, which shows that we're coming out of this state of learning loss, possibly. One really interesting factor, though, the grade 3 and 4, they were highly affected. Like, they were in first and second grade during the kindergarten and first grade during the shutdown. And I'm just curious to think that, those are years where you're learning your letters and your numbers and how to add and how to read, how much you progress in first grade specifically. And just thinking about what maybe family and just sitting around the table doing things like that maybe helped to maybe boost it. I know the teachers were working extremely hard. I'm not taking anything away from the teachers. You guys have a great thing going on at NES, but it's just interesting just to see maybe if you have that extra factor and we can, if that's part of it, somehow nurture that moving forward. I don't know, but pretty awesome.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Gail? All right, well, thank you very much. So we're moving on to consent agenda. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve consent agenda items CA1B, CA2A, CA2B, and CA2C?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. On to the budget report. Karen?
Good evening. Expenditures for the 4 months ended October 31st, total $9,717,793. That's 26.8% of the budget. And our expenditures and encumbrances for the 4 months total $30,652,496, and that's 84.54% of our budget.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Karen? All right, thank you. So we have one business item for tonight. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the revisions made to the Narragansett school system purchasing policy?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
So this revision to the policy is essentially making sure that our policy is in line with state law. So state law requires, and we put that in your packets, that procurements not to exceed an aggregate amount of $10,000 for construction and $5,000 for all the purchases may be in accordance with small purchase regulations. The important part of it is says these amounts shall be increased or decreased annually hereafter at the same rate as the Boston Regional Consumer Price Index. So with that, what that means is that the intent of the law is to have a certain amount of goods, or purchase to be able to be purchased without going to school committee that are just routine purchases, things like, quite honestly, like paper towels or, kind of bulk items like that. What our adjustments to the purchase policy are requesting, and we discussed this with the policy committee, is to make sure that our policy is reflective of inflation. So, in the past, what we could get for, let's say, $7,000, is very different 5 years ago than what we can get now with the level of inflation that has happened. And so what the adjustments to the policy does is basically tie our purchasing policy, like the state law, to the consumer price index. It would require Karen at the beginning of each fiscal year to determine, here are the limits as determined by the state law. So I believe this year would be around $10,000 or so.
Yes, the $5,000 limit would be about $10,900, and the $10,000 limit would be $22,000 approximately.
Okay, so routine purchases would be at the $10,000 range, and construction purchases would be at the $20,000 range. And so again, this is just reflecting the state law. We haven't updated our policy to kind of reflect the state law before this. We've been kind of stuck at that original 5,000 and 10,000. And so we find ourselves getting to a place where we would need to be coming to the school committee literally to buy toilet paper in June. And so where we do our bulk purchases. So we want to make those adjustments so that we can make those purchases. The other piece that we are maintaining in place is that anything that is over $5,000 will still require being purchased from a master price agreement or require 3 bids. And so again, we're kind of keeping those controls in place, and anything over $10,000 would require school committee approval.
Any questions for Pete or Karen?
I just have one. I know we're passing this with revisions, and on page 5, we're using the old job title, Director of Business Operations, and I think that needs to be changed to the new title of, Karen's new title of Director of Finance and Admin. Well, not new, but new since the...
New since the last time we did this.
Last
Sure thing,
time we
we'll
did
make that
that.
adjustment.
Yeah, last time this was what, 6 years ago or something?
2017.
2017,
Yeah, I think it was my first or second year that we did it.
Any other questions or comments for Pete or Karen?
So we're not voting on this tonight, right? This is the first read?
Yes, this is a first read of a policy.
So it is a vote. We're voting on a first read, and then there'll be a second read. So we're voting to approve these revisions as a first read.
And then we'll get this.
That'll come back again next month.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Any other questions or comments before we vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. So are there any communications anyone wants to mention?
I just want to give a nice shout out to the principals at the schools and our Director of Student Services for providing some really lively reports, very energized reports. There's a lot going on in our schools, and it was really appreciated to read through the communications that they shared with the school committee, and I highly recommend the public take a look at them, because there's a lot going on in our schools, and there's a lot to be happy about.
Thank you. And we have 2 important meetings coming up in December. So we have our annual first meeting with the town council for a joint town council budget workshop. That's Monday, December 18th at 6 o'clock. And I'm assuming it'll either be here or in the large boardroom. The last couple years it was here, but you'll let us know. So 6 o'clock on Monday, the 18th. And then 2 days later, we have our regular December school committee meeting, December 20th at 7 o'clock. And for school committee members, just make sure you we have in our packet the whole budget schedule, kind of timeline that talks about our budget workshops and the whole timeline. So as you're sorting through your packet, make sure you take that budget calendar and put those into your own calendar. All right, so is there a motion to adjourn at 8:18?